We'll let you know when we're.
Talkness Monster Podcast.
And we're live with Richard Harley and his nephew, right over here running the show, Russell Harley. So thanks for coming on. And I've been talking to Russell about this over at Steen's Master Loop for a little while, and he mentioned you actually several months ago, and pretty excited to have you on. So you are a Korean War vet,
yes, sir,
who witnessed the first, if probably the first, is it the first H-bomb?
It's the first bomb, but that detonation, I'll put it this way, the first detonation or explosion of this size made by humanity. And the whole thing went together so fast, and we never knew why. Because we were in Korea, and we were running support for the troops. I was on an aircraft carrier, and we were flying planes over. And one night, in the middle of the night, I could tell we'd changed course because the wave action is a certain way at sea, and you get used to it. So I got up the next morning and went up to commanders on the flight deck, and I said, "What happened?" He said, "I don't know. We're changed direction." What we did, we came back to the United States and went to San Francisco, and they offloaded all the stuff that we had on that ship, put new stuff in boxes with no labels on it, and just boxes and boxes and boxes.
Yeah.
We left San Francisco, went to Hawaii, in Pearl Harbor. They did the same thing. Some of this stuff they offloaded, but a lot more they put on. And when we left there, 3 days out before the commander even was able to open his orders, he said we were going to Marshall Islands. Well, what in the world for? We got down there in August, late August, September, October, and the scuttlebutt.
The scuttlebutt.
Okay, now people talk about scuttlebutt being, something that's somebody starts. Well, somebody started it, all right. It was the United States government.
Okay.
The scuttlebutt they started was about this bomb that was so powerful, and the radiation that goes with it. What this scuttlebutt was all about, they wanted to know how people would respond to knowing this information about it being so deadly. It was done on purpose because they wanted to know how people would act to this such a magnitude.
And this is before or after the bomb?
That was before the bomb.
Okay, so
it's on the way down there.
Oh, okay.
So all the time going across the ocean, we're getting this stuff back and forth. We get down to Kwajalein. We sat there for 3 weeks, and more of this stuff kept going on. Well, in the last week of October, we pulled anchor and went to sea. Where we went, it was down by Okinawa. I got too many things on my mind right now. Eniwetok.
Yeah.
Eniwetok and Kwajalein were the two main islands in that chain. There are 1,100 islands in that chain. Now, an atoll is a group of islands. So there's two atolls, Kwajalein and Eniwetok. And that's over 1,100 islands out there in this complex.
Wow, that's a ton. I can't even imagine.
And there was only 5 islands over there that the Marshallese actually lived on, and they had been there for millennium, forever. Way back thousands and thousands of years ago, they'd been on those islands. Well, when we detonated that bomb, and that was on November 1st, 1952, it blew a hole in the bottom of the ocean over 3,000 feet deep. That's deep enough to stand the Empire State Building on and drown it. It blew a hole, a cavern in the bottom of the ocean over 3 miles across. If you saw the bombs that were dropped in Japan. The volume or column of debris that came down was like a quarter mile to a half mile across. The debris column, as you say, was over 5 miles across on this one. It was over 20 miles across, and the major part of it, it actually was right at 75 miles at the major part of the fallout of the radiation. It was over 400 miles across within 4 hours, had gone to 120,000 feet. And the fallout from there was unbelievable. It was like, we looked at it as a way like it was like talcum powder, only it was so thick, it's a little over 100 feet across the flight deck from the one side to the island, and you could hardly see the island. It was that thick.
Yeah.
Well, I'll back up now to before it detonated. We were supposed to be 38 miles from ground zero. We were actually less than 24. The shock waves that came out from it rattled that ship like a dog shaking a wet rag. Three shock waves came out, and we had a 4 to 6 foot swells out there before that. When that bomb detonated, it flattened the ocean out like a mirror for miles, over 100 miles, just flattened it out completely. There were boats at over 125 miles away that radiation affected people on there. For one man example, his wife had 3 miscarriages. He got cancer. It was all directly from that radiation. Now, figure that over 52,000 people lived in those islands at that time. Now, the government says that there were only 20,000 veterans or civilians involved in this. Well, what happened to the other 30,000? Because it says the radiation fallout covered the entire group.
Yeah.
So the government is not really telling everything. I'm not going to say some things about the government that would embarrass them, but I do know some things that would curl your hair. And I will tell you this one. In that column of debris that went up was 20 miles across, okay, total. They sent these aircraft in, fighter planes off of Anahuac with instruments on them to measure what was happening inside that column, and they flew them into that. Well, as soon as they entered that debris, the static electricity thing destroyed all their operation of everything on the plane. It stopped, killed the phones, the instruments quit reading. So they were trying to find their way back out of there. Well, finally they did, but one of them was close enough to Anahuac that he managed to get within 18 miles of Anahuac when he ran out of fuel. So he dead stick landed in. The other one, they never found him. They finally, 2 days later, they found a plane upside down in the ocean near an atoll, but never did find his body.
Oh.
They have never admitted to that.
What's new?
Yeah, what's new?
Seems like the government doesn't admit to a lot of things.
Well, what they seem to be able to word things in such a way as that sounds right and true. But I'm going to tell you, I know things that went on down there. And I look at what I know, and I think I know these things. How many more people know things that the government's not exactly straight with? So anyway, of the 1,100, over 1,100 little islands in those 2 atolls, they moved all of the people that lived on those 5 islands out of there completely, because they didn't know what it was going to do. They had no idea. Well, here's what happened and how this came about on such short order. There was at Los Alamos a super scientist, one of the top scientists in there working on this nuclear fusion, there was a spy for Russia, and they found out about it. So everything that we had been doing in our science, every advancement, he was sending to Russia.
And that's how they got the bombs right after World War II?
Exactly. That's how Russia got it.
How the heck did they let somebody like that, don't they have procedures to keep you from being a spy?
You would think that when Second World War ended, all the scientists in Germany that were working on everything were all divided between the United States and Russia. And they were all great scientists. Germany had some great scientists in their operation. So somehow this Klaus Rooch, or whatever his last name was, became part of what we got.
Oh.
And so, like you said, what do we do to try to counteract this kind of a thing happening? And so how he got past, I've never been able to find out.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how Russia found out. That's how Russia came so close. And that's why we went ahead and made this early movement to develop this nuclear fusion system and get it detonated. Now, of all the atom bombs that have been dropped, there's less than 10% chance of a malfunction. On this hydrogen nuclear fusion system, it was a 50-50 chance. We didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because atom bombs implode, hydrogen explodes. The scuttlebutt said that maybe it would destroy the world.
They literally didn't know.
No, they didn't know. Theoretically, this would happen. But it was way heavier detonation than they anticipated and what they're admitting to.
And you were there.
I was 10 megahertz plus 2 was what they estimated that it would be. Well, it was over. Now, a friend of mine, he's passed away, so maybe I can go ahead and say his name, but I won't the others.
Yeah.
His name was Carl Morgan. He was a nuclear physicist, friend of mine. And I called him some years later, and we were talking. How did I catch him home? He was only been 30 minutes, and he had to catch a plane. He was going to be gone for another 3 years. So he went and shut the plane down, and we sat and discussed what actually happened there. When he got back aboard the ship from the station that he was at, he measured the nuclear reactor's radiation. The government, I don't know if you know what a dosimeter is.
No.
Well, a dosimeter is a little badge that you wear that collects radiation and tells you how much you've been exposed to. Well, we all had those. Of course, we all turned them all in. Well, 2 weeks later, a little less than 2 weeks, we get a bulletin out that said, the radiation wasn't near as bad as we thought it might be. It's only 0.022 rems of radiation. Well, Carl, when he got back to the ship, he went down and measured on one of the spots, and it was over 600.
Yeah.
And I said, you kidding? He said, no. He said, I measured it. I know. So that's some of the things that took place. And it was so secret that before we left the United States, they inspected everybody's compartments. And if you couldn't have a pencil, paper, camera, anything that you could record anything on. If you had it and they caught you with it, it was automatic 10 years in Leavenworth.
Oh, man.
No questions asked.
Yeah.
You went. Fortunately, they didn't find any. We obeyed and got rid of it all.
Yeah.
But that's how secret it was.
Yeah.
And so for people to know about this, they didn't know until the Freedom of Information Act.
And that was very recent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's super duper, but
So all these years, nobody knew. We never talked about it, even. You didn't, because that's the way it was supposed to be.
yeah.
So after the detonation, we were before the detonation, we were go up. Everybody that was on the carrier and we were the flagship of the operation. The command ship was full of instruments, so usually they're the same boat, but in this case they were two separate boats. One had all the instrumentation, electronics, and things that operate the device, and we were the flagship because we had the admiral on board, and that was the differentiation there. So anyone that wanted to participate above, or could at least a position of job at that time wouldn't allow them to, were to go up on the flight deck, sit down on the deck with their backs turned to the detonation point, pull their knees up in front of their bodies, lay your arm across, the forearm across your knees, and put your eyes on your lid, tightly on your arm, and you couldn't pick it up for at least 12 seconds. Well, the story you hear about being able to see the bones in your arm,
Yeah.
it's true. You see nothing of the meat around your bones. It's strictly the bones. That's all you see. It's that bright. And for 12 seconds, you think you're going to burn up because it gets that hot. We thought maybe it was really true that it was going to destroy the Earth because it kept getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And after the detonation, I looked around. There was guys up there crying. Pretty near had heart attacks because we thought we destroyed the Earth.
And when it went off, did you have special glasses or goggles?
There were some. Mostly officers had them. Most of the enlisted men just had to get on the deck and hide their eyes in their arm.
Wow.
But the intensity of it, of course, down there, like at 6 o'clock in the morning, the water's 75 degrees. It's hot there. We're halfway between the Hawaii and Australia.
Yeah.
Just north of the equator. And so everybody had T-shirts on, And so when that exploded and that heat in your body, in your back, I got PTSD from it. Okay, because my thoughts, as soon as that detonated and I was on the flight deck, everybody else had gone below decks but me. Because my position on the carrier was a catapult operator, and I was right up on the flight deck. When the fallout started coming down was just seconds, and it got to the point where it was over a half-inch thick on the flight deck before they washed it down.
Oh my!
I was standing there and I was brushing the stuff off my arms and my shoulders, and
was it like a powder?
It's finer than talcum powder.
Okay.
It's like snow, only tiny, tiny particles. And it just covered the flight deck just in seconds.
I wonder what that stuff is. I mean, because it was
It's
it was the island, right? They blew the island up.
It's all the coral and stuff that was in those islands was pulverized. Imagine that there was 170 boats were parked, anchored at various points around those islands.
Yeah.
Because they were really interested in what effect it had on the ships, how they would ride out the waves, how the people would respond and be able to respond to what happened. And so all these boats all sunk. There was a cruiser that a friend of mine was a photographer on the ship. And he called me and said, "Come up, you got to look at this. This is totally against the rules." But it showed this cruiser that it picked up a half a mile in the air in that column before it started falling back down. I saw it on film. And so with all there were some of the scientists who came back aboard ship in the fetal position because they had thought we'd lost it. They come in carrying them on stretchers. That's how devastating it was.
So you said a bunch of the other boats sank. Were there people on those boats?
No, there was no people on those. They were just anchored out there. They'd been floated over there.
They were just testing to see how they'd handle the blast.
See what happened to them.
So this is the first H-bomb. Is this have a name? Like
Operation Ivy. And the
Ivy.
bomb was named Mike. The flag was on it's like the 7th Fleet. Okay. Well, it was a fleet called the 136th, was designed specifically for this hydrogen bomb test.
Uh-huh.
And it was disbanded afterwards. All the people of the 8,000 that were there in military, they think, and I can't hardly believe it's true, but they think, according to the Nuclear Museum, New Mexico, and the University of Berkeley in California, they think I might be the only one alive out of 8,000. They said that there was 20,000 civilians involved. Well, if there was 52,000 on those islands and the radiation covered all of them, where's that other 30,000? I've never been able to find out.
Yeah, it was probably really bad for him. I can't even.
Well, I am so disappointed and hurt over what the United States government did to those people that lived there. Is unbelievable what they've allowed them. And now the comment they're making is, well, we'll try to help them. What do you mean? You destroyed them. And no try. Do it. It's just astonishing. The deaths that were caused from radiation, the things that happened to livers, the children that all had dysfunctioning abilities, that were born disformed, and the parents couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
These people were never warned of this happening.
Yeah.
They didn't move them off the islands until after that detonation, and there was so much radiation.
So what did it sound like? Did you have ear protection, or did you?
No, actually, it's surprising. The sound wasn't nearly as much as you would think.
And you're 24 miles away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, we were supposed to be 36, 38, somewhere in there. So we were a lot closer. There was not many boats that was actually closer to the detonation than we were. We weren't supposed to be there. A friend of mine who worked with the navigator said that what happened was the trade winds, the way the winds blew, they were trying to stick way around it, so that when the fallout would be away from there.
Yeah.
Big, mean winds would carry it away to the west or to the east. And so, but it didn't happen. There was no wind.
Yeah.
And so all of this radiation, tons and tons and tons and tons of it, was spread out over that entire atoll, both those atolls, over the ocean. There was a fishing boat 147 miles out away from there that one of the gentlemen that was on that fishing boat, his wife they couldn't have any children.
Uh-huh.
They were all anyway, they weren't
the
born.
radiation sterilized them somehow.
Yeah. And his wife got cancer. She got cancer of the breast and cancer of the prostate or the pancreas. It killed her.
Yeah, but how is it that you're doing so well? Like you were covered in fallout and
if the University of Berkeley had an answer for that, they'd probably make it front page.
I mean, you might have some special gene or something. I mean, maybe Russ has it too. Like, give me some of your blood. Let me drink it.
Well, that's what
you got.
That's what a lot of ladies have said to me since then. Actually, the University of Berkeley, they called me just about 10 years ago or a little, and wanted me to come down. They wanted to examine me. Now, the only way they could have found out that I was even still alive was because when I called the nuclear museum, I was trying to find materials that I could use to make presentations because I have 5 high schools that have asked me to do that. And when I called them, and the lady answered, and I told her who I was, and I said, I asked her, have you got any materials that I could use for a presentation? And she said, well, what's your interest? So I said, well, I was there. It went silent. I thought she'd hung up a full minute, and I started to hang up myself when she said, hello, you still there? And I said, yes. She says, are you the one that was exposed to that radiation, that bomb? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, we've been 65 years trying to find someone. You're the only one.
65 years.
So, but logically speaking, there's got to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it wasn't shortly after that the University of Berkeley called me, so there was some connection there. Otherwise, he wouldn't have known. So they gave me airplane fare to fly to Berkeley. They picked me up at the airport. I spent 3 days there with them. They were punching and pushing and drawing into blood and things. So then I had to sit there for another 3 days waiting for them to come to a conclusion. So they called me, and I went over to this unit, the science center in the university, and we went into a office. There was 8 doctors in there, and I sat there for 2 hours back and forth with these people trying to figure out what's happened. So in the end, the head doctor said, well, this is what she said. She said, Mr. Harley, of all the people exposed to radiation, whether they work in a dentist office, in the mines, wherever exposed to radiation, less than 0.5%, it retards their aging, and we think you're one of them.
Really?
Yeah. At that time, I had the bone density of a 40-year-old, and I'm in my late 80s.
That's how old you are now? And
I'm 91 now.
Wow, you're 91?
Yes.
Man, I'd say you were probably 75.
Well, I've had everything from 60 to 75. Nobody's thought I was older than that.
Yeah.
So anyway, what you mentioned about ladies, about where do I get some of that radiation, you would be amazed at how many women that I've got in this discussion with and said that. They said, where can we get it?
Yeah.
So anyway, there's humor involved. But anyway, I think that probably what the government did to the people from the Marshallese and how they've treated them is totally disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just, what do you even call that? It's some sort of torture. It's like genocide.
It wouldn't have been so bad if they'd have warned them at least and made some preparation to help them.
It's too secret. You can't tell them.
Yeah, they didn't know. They were not even aware.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. I can't. Yeah, the whole thing is just bananas.
Yeah, well, my PTSD, I didn't know I had. Okay, but when I was standing there on the flight deck and saw this radiation, I knew it was radiated material coming out of the sky. And I got to thinking, we are nothing. When someone can push a button and do that much destruction, you and I are absolutely nothing. And it really hit me because I've always been a pretty conscientious person. Didn't realize how much that was. But it was years later before a doctor that a friend of mine said, well, first thing we got to do with you is get you over this. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you got depression. I said, no, I don't. He said, yes, you do. You got PTSD. Well, it wasn't so bad that I couldn't function, but it did affect my activity. So he helped me get past it. And so looking back on that, what it did to me, when I saw those guys sitting on the deck of that aircraft carrier crying, and what it must have done to them, it just breaks my heart.
Is that part of your PTSD? Was just watching your fellow
Just seeing what
crew?
happened. Yeah. Just to see that
Yeah.
it was so bad that, well, a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-old guys that never been anywhere away from their mother until they joined the service, and here they are hauled away off into a situation like that with the scuttlebutt that was given.
Yeah.
What could you expect them to do?
I mean, that's a horrific. There's a whole thing, like people who have dreams when they feel helpless. I've had one of these before,
Mm-hmm.
and I know other people who've had them. But you imagine that you're there's a nuclear blast,
Yeah.
and that's like this whole thing, like subconsciously,
Oh,
because it's so. You're saying we're nothing, and for these guys, like you're saying, they're 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they
A
see
lot of
and
it,
they see a real one.
I was 19.
You were 19,
Yeah.
and then how did you feel when you
That's what it just blew my mind. To look at that, and you can go on the internet, on YouTube, and bring up Operation Ivy, Marshall Islands, and you can see pictures that were taken of that column.
Yeah. Hey Russ, can you pull that up?
I think I can.
Yeah, that computer, this is
Uh,
mouse right here. You
oh.
just click out of it. It's in
In-
VLC, so
in-
you just exit out of that. Yeah.
In 12 seconds, it had gone nearly 20,000 feet. The column had raised that far. In 12 seconds.
How long again? How tall?
Well, 20,000 feet.
20,000 feet. That's like 4 miles.
Yeah, just immediately.
So you saw it. You were looking
Oh,
up
yeah,
at it,
I watched it go up,
and then
and I saw it expand. It's
wow.
with the knowledge that we had from the atom bombs in Japan, and we were all aware of that, of course. And then to have something like this, so much larger, is over 1,000 times more powerful than those two bombs.
The ones that you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
In
yeah.
Japan.
Hiroshima, Nagasaki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over fat man and little boy.
Oh, yeah.
Those bombs.
Oh, we got a guy online, OG Skywatch, a buddy I know. He says he's had the dream, the atomic bomb dream. And have you heard of Operation Greenhouse?
Oh, yes.
Crossroads?
Yes.
The Oak Test Operation Hardtack?
Yes.
Wow, so you're familiar with all of these. Guess
Most all of
they've
them,
told
yeah.
5 or 6
Yeah.
times is what he says.
Well, there are a bunch of them.
Yeah, I'm
We've
I'm
done-
obsessed with them. Like anytime I can get a video on YouTube and I want to watch them on
I got to put my glass on.
oh
for
yeah,
this.
no sweat. Yeah, do what you got to do.
There was the Marshall Islands operations were done between 1944 and 1980, was the most of it. Okay, and it was off of the two main atolls, Kwajalein and Aniuta.
Lab Island.
Bring it up again.
Oh yeah, go ahead, put it on. Yeah. So he's putting his video on
So, Cat 2.
the top one.
This one here.
Yeah.
There we go.
Is this Ivy?
Yeah, this is Ivy. Can you hear it?
You hear anything?
I couldn't hear anything through the. Okay.
Did you know that guy, Clarkson?
I know him. I did. They're all dead.
Oh. God, you're probably in one of these videos.
Yeah. Now think about these guys sitting on that flight deck.
Oh, you were at that one. Okay. That's gnarly. Yeah, that looks like hell just rose.
That was within the first 30 minutes.
Wow. Does that look like you remember? You remember
Oh,
it like
yeah.
that?
That's what we saw.
Oh man, that's gnarly. I've seen that one's been referenced quite a bit. I've seen because it's so gnarly. It's just
Oh, yeah.
a ball or like a dome of pure
Fire.
Yeah.
It was all fire, hot.
And they so the that's an explosion, but the atomic bombs were implosion.
Yeah.
Because I always was curious about the difference between that. So they have atomic bombs, hydrogen bombs, and then fusion or fission.
Now, fusion is the hydrogen bomb.
Oh, that's the hydrogen. Okay.
Yeah. Thermonuclear.
Okay, thermo. What's that?
Well, thermal means the type of atomic action. See, atom bombs implode, the atoms implode, and the explosion. That's thermonuclear.
Copy. Yeah.
It breaks me up right now just sitting here thinking about it and seeing that again.
Have you been able to? How have you been able to cope with that?
Most of the time, because I've been able to keep myself busy, very busy. I've done so many things that, well, I've got 5 authors that want to write my story.
Yeah.
And I tell them, no one will believe that I've done what I have. It's just in the wrong place at the right time, I guess, is the only thing I can say about it.
Yeah, you'd mentioned, which I thought was fascinating, that you'd been in 2 plane crashes.
Yeah.
And obviously you survived them both. But,
Yeah.
you know,
I was in the hospital for a while.
Okay.
One of them for 2 months, but I survived it.
Were those both in the military? Or?
One was a military plane, one was civilian.
Yeah, I would say anybody that survives any kind of plane crash, it's a miracle because, I mean, everybody, they say airplanes are the safest way to travel.
They are.
The way I see it, though, is okay, so you're probably safer in an airplane, but like if an airplane crashes, you're less safe.
It's the if or when.
Because you can survive a car crash. People crash all the time and
yeah.
survive, and they die too. But you know, an airplane's like going way faster, and there's no.
Well, the big thing I guess about it is airplanes are constructed out of the lightest material they can use to efficiently fly.
Oh yeah.
So when one hits the ground, there's nothing to hold it together. It might as well be cardboard.
Well, and sometimes like you see plane crashes, and occasionally you can see some of the raw pictures or footage, you know, and there's with the bodies and whatnot. And then there's people who are still in the plane. They're still buckled in, and they're still gone because of the G forces and internal
fire,
eruption.
all
Fire.
those kinds of things that happen. Yeah.
It's just such a violent thing, and it's like you survived twice. So the military one. Tell us about the one in the military.
Well, the military was another kind of a deal. It was one that's not recorded. Okay, so if anybody questions, they're going to say it's BS because it's no record.
Okay.
We were operating on the west coast of Korea, and the reason was for that. I was on an escort carrier. They found knobs sticking up in the China Sea over there that was within 80 feet of the surface, none recorded. So the big carriers, if it hit one of them, it would have sunk it. So our draft was 50 feet. So they put us over there. All the larger carriers operated out of the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
And so those kinds of things were just part of what we did. Well, being that I can't go into all the detail, all right, of what I was involved in the military. I can just say that part of it had to do with going into Japan, because there was a North Korean pod in there that had information that we wanted concerning a new invasion. I went and got it. So that's as far as I can go on that. So we were operating right off the coast. In fact, there were a couple of times we were so close they fired cannons at us. Because we needed to get these aircraft in the air and deploying their armament as fast as we could, so we could get them back, get them reloaded, and send them again. Now they were taking rockets, lots of rockets, 500-pound bombs, and machine guns, 50 millimeter stuff, that type of thing, to support our troops. Well, on this one stretch we were on, there was a place that was 12 miles long, the mountain. The highest point on it was 900 feet above sea level. The North Koreans had gun emplacements on the back side of it that were camouflaged.
Uh-huh.
And so we were only 2.5 miles to the ocean. So they're firing over the top of this ridge at our guys. And they were killing them. They were terrible. So, well, a lieutenant commander that I knew, I told him, we got to do something about it, because every one of the spotters that were set up there to try to locate this stuff were getting killed. They never even got to their positions. And they'd killed off 10 of them. And there was no way to guide these aircraft and things in on the exact spots where these locations were. And they were in tunnels. On the backside, they had camouflage. So I said, we got to go over there and find those.
Uh-huh.
And he said, you're nuts, of course. Yeah. I said, no. We got to get an airplane and go over there. And he said, never happened. I said, well, somebody's got to do it. They've lost 10 guys already, just spotters. Look at all the guys they're killing here on the beach. So he said, you're serious? I said, yes. So I said, find the plane. So he went off the beach. And on the beach, in a hangar in there, was a twin-engine Beechcraft beach plane. It was a private, belonged probably to some admiral or something. We don't know who. So he went and had the crew go in there and take all the identification off of it, take out the ID, even ground the serial numbers off the engines. And
this is a Korean plane?
yeah, well, no, it's American.
Oh, it's American. Oh.
Yeah. And we figure it, but I really belong to an admiral.
Yeah.
But so he had them do all of that, and he come back to me, and this is like 6 o'clock in the afternoon that we're talking about it. He come back to me at 11:30, and it said, I got a plane. I said, you do? Yeah. He says, I got a crew over there right now cleaning it up. Take everything off it, take all the decals, everything off of it, take all the seats out except the two, the pilot and co-pilot. So this friend of mine who's a photographer on the ship, I went up and said, I need a high-speed camera. He says, what? He started to say, what? He said, never mind, don't tell me. So anyway, 3 o'clock in the morning, we went over there, had civilian clothes on, flying this plane. And as soon as it started to break daylight, we wound the engines up in this hangar. And when we got it all warmed up and ready, he said, now let's go. So he released the brakes on it, and we went out of that hangar practically at flight level of speed. And as soon as we hit the runway over there, they were hollering at us, identify, we're going to treat you out. Well, we stayed about 20 feet off the ground for 500 miles. It seemed like, wait, it wasn't that far, 'cause it's only 12 miles.
Yeah.
So we got up to it, and there was a saddle in the mountain range there, a low spot. When we got to that, we went up from about 200 feet above ground, went to 8,000 feet, and rolled over. And he said, "Here we go," and turned upside down. And that little Cessna, or that little plane that I didn't think would handle it, but he was a pilot, and we rolled over and took a dive, and went down. And as we got down close to the ground, he leveled off, and we went across. If there had been any trees there, we'd have hit them. But there wasn't a blade of grass left on that whole mountain range. We went down through there, and it was daylight enough, and I'm taking pictures as I go along, and I said, "There's one, there's one." I found 5 gun emplacements.
Oh.
So as we got to the other end, and we started to get back, and they were shooting us. We had holes all over in that plane. And so as we went up through this other saddle, I thought he was going to hook the wing on the dirt. I mean, really, he was that low. And then just as we got through it, we got hit, blew an engine, and of course we started to spin, but he was able to keep us straight enough. We got about a half a mile further before we hit the ground, and our troops were closer than the North Koreans, and they got there first. Well, I was out. I mean, I was on my feet. When the plane crashed, it threw somehow my seat parted out of the plane. And next thing I know, I'm standing. I don't know how I got out of the seat belt, nothing, I don't know. And I was standing there, and our guys showed up, and they hollered, "Raise your hands," and this. And it happened that a chief from the ship knew me. Now here we are in civilian clothes, all tore up, and he looked, "Hell, I know that guy." And that's what saved our lives. So anyway, then I handed him the camera, and I said, "Get this back to the ship."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And so they did, and by 11 o'clock, they were destroying that side of the mountains.
Yeah.
But that's not a record.
Mm-hmm.
The funny part about it is that a few days later, a lieutenant come down and said, "Harley, the old man wants to see you." Now, what for? So I went up, and I'm standing at the door of the lieutenant commander, so I knew. Well, how do you know what? So anyway, knocked, went in, standing there. He's sitting across the desk from us with his back against some bulkhead and looking at some papers. He never looked up. He just sat there, and we stood there and stood there and stood there for a good 10 minutes, maybe 15, and he never looked up. Finally, he very slowly closed this material up and laid it up on the desk, leaned back in his chair, looked up at me, and he said, "Harley, you son of a bitch, what are you trying to do, start World War III?" So anyway, then he really read us the riot act.
Mm-hmm.
And when it got through, he said, "Now, I want you to get the hell out of here." He said, "If I ever hear your name mentioned, I see you, or anyone says there you are, you're going to Leavenworth. There's no glory in what you did, because nobody can know." So he said, "Now get the hell out of here." So as I got to the door, lieutenant went through there first, and I just started through the door, and he said, "Harley?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Good job." But anyway, that's not a record.
That's okay. That's on my record. So I actually wanted to ask you about a couple of current events.
Okay.
And then OG Sky was also asking. But what do you think about the whole Russia thing? Like, I mean, for me, it's hard to believe what the media is saying. I'm not necessarily like, "Oh, the Russians are great," but I mean, I know we supported the Ukrainians or did a lot of stuff there before, and I don't even know. What do you think?
Well, I'm not going to say anything about intelligence, but that started in 1945.
The Russian,
This whole thing.
really? and it's just been going ever since.
It has to do with socialism.
Okay.
Okay. China. And you don't hear a whole lot, do you? Just a little
Not
bit.
too much.
Well, but you hear a lot about the Ukraine and Russia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you suppose China's doing all this time that our attention is on Russia?
I don't know.
Well, they have property in every country in the world. In Africa, they have like 50 pieces of property fenced like prisons,
Oh, wow.
concentration camps.
Uh-huh.
That's all over the world. And their goal was set clear back in the Ming Dynasty was to rule the world. Well, they're not people that get impatient. So my opinion is that this thing with Russia is a ruse to get our mind off of China. Now you got to realize that, like I felt when that bomb went off, that we're nobody.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. In Vietnam, they sent guys up these mountains, okay, to overpower the North Vietnamese. We had 5 aircraft carriers at times over there with hundreds of aircraft that could have been loaded with how many tons of ammunition, bombs and whatnot, that could have gone up there and wiped that whole thing out.
Yeah.
But what they do, they send our troops up and got them killed.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so I'm not happy with the way the government does things.
Yeah, it does seem kind of strange, like the whole. I mean, to decide when it's okay and not
Yeah,
okay to
yeah.
send people out to get killed
Yeah.
just seems.
Now, here's a theory. It's my theory. And it goes clear back to before Christ.
Uh-huh.
All the wars. Now, they may not have been quite predominantly this way back in those days. There's other reasons. But I believe that there's 2 things that the government thinks about. Survival of the government and population growth. Now, all the people that are killed in wars, just about everyone's under 25.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's all the young people.
Mm-hmm. Now, that's my theory. I'm saying that because they say that 900 million or something like that is the maximum of the Earth could.
Billion.
Billion,
Yeah.
9
I
billion.
think we're
Yeah,
at about
yeah, 9
is it
billion.
7 or 8?
We just got 8.
We just got 8?
Yeah.
Last week we got 8 billion.
Okay.
Wow.
Last week, 8 killed per person.
They say 9 will be the max.
And then
Dang.
we'll rapidly go down after that.
Oh, it's just it's
predictions
because of they're gonna kill everybody, or because it's like implode.
Well, they got to reduce the. See, China did that
One job.
some years ago back.
Did that actually
They
work?
they killed all the female babies that were born. Well, now there's 200 and some million males over there without a wife.
Yeah, I've heard that's really bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what has that done to their population growth?
I don't know. Is it going up? I don't know. What's going?
How could it? There's no wives.
Yeah, there's no wives, but they have so many people over there. It's just they have so many. Is it just gonna? Is it going down? Is it a downward trend?
No, that we have right now.
Oh.
Russia has. China has right now the same population they had in 1977.
Really? So there's.
Here's a kicker. So do we.
Oh, I believe it. But what is it like? It must be like India. They're growing exponentially.
Well, they are, but they're
maybe-
controlling it.
Are they?
Not like we do, because their religion, quote unquote, gives them a specific way to act,
Uh-huh.
and they do that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they do, but they worship rats too. So
Yeah, yeah. The cows are sacred.
Yeah.
I eat cow.
So that's just
Yeah.
my opinion of what's going on.
No,
Okay.
appreciate that.
And I'm not saying I'm anywhere close to right. However, the indicators are there that's possibly what's going on.
Well, so they're keeping us, focused over on
Russia.
Russia, right?
Yeah.
So why? Because China's like, like you're saying, they're buying all this land. Well, I don't understand how they're allowed to buy land here. Like,
Good question.
I want to buy some land. How come China's buying land? They should.
Because we're supporting them.
Oh.
We're buying what they produce.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And they control the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, when they started building those islands in the South Pacific, in the South China Sea, they've expanded their area of control because they got those islands that they're building out there.
Yeah.
Well, why? What's the reason to put them out there? There's nothing on them.
Uh-huh.
They're not doing anything with them. So, other than maybe making Navy bases or something like that.
Probably making Navy bases.
Yeah. So I just look at all this, and I look at what the hydrogen bomb did,
Yeah.
and the expansion of radiation from that's still there, and it will be forever.
Uh-huh.
See, these people can't go back on some of those islands. They actually bought and transported topsoil. I don't know where they come from, but took it over there to the Marshall Islands and put 4 foot of topsoil on those 5 islands where these people had lived so that they'd go back on them. It didn't work. The radiation came through. Can you imagine the expense of doing something so stupid?
I mean, you're just losing land. You know what they say about real estate, right?
Yep.
They don't make more of it.
Yeah. China is.
Yeah, they're building islands. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical about those man-made islands. I don't know about that.
Well, there must have been some logic in there for them to do that, more than we just want to do it. There had to be more reason than that.
Yeah, I guess.
See, China, since the Ming Dynasty, and I don't know about that, that's the only far back as I studied, has had in their mind to become world power, world power,
Oh yeah, I believe
owner of the world.
Uh-huh.
Well, they're not an impatient people.
So they'll wait as
They're
long as it
not like
takes.
us. We don't need it. We say we got to have it now. They're not that way.
Yeah.
We'll wait.
Well, they've been around a lot longer.
Yep.
A lot longer. So, do you... Obviously, the government keeps a lot of things secret, and a lot of things have been coming out lately about, they call them UAPs now, but UFOs.
Oh,
I mean,
UFOs?
I'm really into like bombs. I love watching, and I'm also like always been interested in UFOs, but like now it's like they're acknowledging it. And is that another distraction, or you think there's some truth to that?
No. They've been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
There is, if you look at the paintings that were done back in Christ's time, okay, of the people and the space out there, you'll find something up there flying.
Yeah, I think I've seen some of those.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they look like spaceships
Yeah.
that are up behind them,
Yeah.
and meteors, and all sorts of interesting things back there.
Yeah. So I believe that they've been here forever. I have a hard time thinking that they come from another universe.
Okay. Yeah.
Because light year time. Okay. Now I also know this scientist. I don't know him well, but I know the scientist. That's what he studies is space.
Yeah.
And he says that in order to be able to travel at light year speed, the body couldn't do it. Physically, we could not take that stress. It would destroy us long before we hit light speed. Light speed, for example, one of the illustrations he gave me, if you flicked a cigarette lighter and got that one spark that light would go around the Earth 10 times in less than a second.
Uh-huh.
That's how fast speed of light is. And here's another thing that's that. Let's take a piece of lint that's floating. You see in the sunlight, see float. Put that in space and move it up to light speed, and it will weigh 10,000 tons.
Oh, because of the G-forces.
Right.
Because it's going so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his opinion is we'll never settle space.
Yeah. I believe that. That means nobody can. The closest star is, I think, maybe like 10 light years or away or something. Maybe a couple light years.
Yeah. Well, when you take that speed, like the illustration of it going around the Earth, that fast. That's how far away that thing is.
Well, some people think that the UFOs are maybe interdimensional beings of some sort, which make it.
When you and I were in, I don't know about you, but when I was in school, they talked about 4 dimensions: height, width, okay. Well, now they figure there's at least 28 dimensions.
28?
Yes.
Dang. So, I mean, I already can't comprehend. Okay, well, I mean,
yeah.
What is
so
that?
This friend of mine that I went to high school with, he's not a nuclear physicist, but a senior scientist for Hughes Electronics.
Yeah.
He designed and developed the water purification for the Apollo shots.
Yeah.
He designed that. And I found out one thing about scientists. They got tunnel vision.
Really?
Well, nothing around them pulls their mind away from it. Okay, they're just looking right down this little spot. They don't even know who their wife is. Okay?
Yeah.
So when they have that kind of tunnel vision, then they can see these things that the average person can't see because you can't comprehend it. You just don't think along those lines.
Yeah.
And so for what this new telescope has given us that they've got in space right now, they found what they call an alley of galaxies that's 30,000 light years wide, and they don't know how deep it goes, but it's full of galaxies out there thousands of light years away.
Oh, that's cool. That new telescope's cool. Is Hubble still around? It's
still used, but not this one's gone so far. Now they've got another one they're putting out.
Another one?
Yeah. That I don't know where they've launched it yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, these outer space telescopes are awesome.
Yeah. Well, the thing that is so difficult about space, now I know this too, among some of my other stupid things, that when they admit that there's people or beings in outer space, that they're not just here, what would that do to religions of all the world? Not just the United States, Christianity, but all, because they all have a beginning point. Okay? Well, how can you have that if you know there's beings on other planets?
Yeah, that does make it tricky, but...
So here's what I heard.
Yeah.
I can't verify this particularly, but I'll say it, that the government, when that spaceship hit the ground out here in 1945, whatever it was, that out there they hit, they went and picked it all up and said it was a balloon, but it actually had 4 people on it, or 4 beings on it.
Yeah, Roswell, New Mexico.
Yeah, okay. When that happened, they had to say, well, how do we clarify that in a way that the people of the religions of this earth will accept that there's actually something somewhere else, okay, that obviously is superior to us.
Yeah.
So they went to Hollywood. Now, this is what I was told. They sat down with the producers and said, we've got to develop films that will indicate that there might be something in space. So Star Wars,
Yeah.
okay, these other outdoor space things. According to what I understand, the reason they did those was to get people's minds in the frame of thought that they might accept that.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, the religion in this world will go nuts.
I feel like we're in a better position now to accept it than
We
probably
are.
ever before.
Absolutely.
And it seems like a lot of the religions, that were really against certain things, like the Pope was cool with gay people now, or whatever.
Right.
It's they're kind of figuring out how they can coexist with reality, I suppose. It seems like it.
That's a must. If you don't get the mental attitude of the general public to accept things, what happens to the world?
Chaos, war.
Wars, among other things.
Yeah.
Total destruction.
Yeah, anarchy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think we're close to World War III?
That's a good question. I pondered that.
Yeah.
No. Because like Russia right now, what they do, they threaten to use atom bombs.
Uh-huh.
Who would win?
Yeah, nobody.
Nobody's going to win.
Yeah. Well, there was the whole. So the one thing that got me a little worked up was this whole. What do they call that new technology? Hypersonic. So if they have hypersonic nukes and they can nuke the hell out of their adversary before they have a chance to strike back, that's the only thing.
If you can get it there.
Uh-huh.
We have a laser.
Uh-huh.
That the speed of light, if let's say Russia sent off a destructive or missile over here, this laser at the speed of light will shoot 300 miles into space and destroy anything it hits.
So that's a missile defense type of thing? Well, that does make sense. It would. That's much faster than any hypersonic missile.
Yeah. Russia claims it's got this one that'll go so fast, but it still has to get over here.
Yeah.
And with our satellite system that we have, and there's nobody scratches their butt anywhere in the world that we don't know it.
Yeah. So then that might be the beginning of the space war, because now people are out there trying to fight the satellites, and now we're in Star Wars.
Yeah. There are so many satellites out there and debris from satellites that it won't be long. They won't even be able to get through them to get out into outer space.
Yeah, the space
without
junk.
running into something.
Hey, there's a website you can look at how much space junk's up there.
Oh, yeah,
What's
I'd like
that?
to check that out.
There's a website you can go to that show you all the
Yeah.
space junk up there. It's amazing.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
space junk.
I've never looked at that. I don't get over to his house often enough to where we can get into that kind of stuff. But I do know that there's pretty near total destructive system out there that no one could create World War III.
Yeah.
At least not with the things that we know of physically. Now, the COVID,
Uh-huh.
okay, that was a test.
Yeah. Yeah, we failed that test. On many levels, I think.
Well, if it wasn't for Fauci,
Oh, man.
we might not have.
When is he going to prison?
No doubt.
Do you know that his income is $400,000 a year?
I heard he makes more than the president.
Yeah,
He just
I think
last year made $2 million.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. No, I don't like that guy.
No,
I don't like him at all.
I never liked him the first time I heard him talk. I said, this guy isn't going to cut it.
You guys can come back anytime.
Well, like I say, I really don't claim to be 100% on anything.
Yeah.
But the potentials of some of these things, it's hard for me to not believe that it could happen.
Yeah.
The stopping here and making this happen or stopping that and destroying this. One of the things that they have done is physically transferred a U.S. Navy destroyer from one part of the earth to another. Instantly.
Teleportation.
Yeah.
When did they do that?
About 15 years ago. Maybe it wasn't that long. Close. 10 years ago.
I heard about a different, before that, where I think they did something. There was like an accident and all the people like became part of the ship, and a bunch of them they were like embedded.
Well, yeah.
Maybe that was part of the process of
yeah.
of doing that teleportation.
Exactly. That's what happens. If you don't get him all there, his arm's going to be sticking up out of the deck of a submarine or something.
Oh man, and that would be terrible.
No, there's a lot of things that they're playing with right now that are dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what some people are thinking, that those UFOs are our own drones.
They could be, some of it.
It's just
but
super
I don't
secret.
agree with all of it.
And the things that they're doing.
The things that I've seen personally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen 5 things personally that there's no way could be being done here.
Well, what did you see?
All right, one. It was 2 years after I got out of the service. Now down here at Yachats, that's where my family lived, and my brother had moved into a house up on a place called Camp One, which was an old logging camp, 2 miles north of Yachats, and it was about 10:30 at night, and I'm going up there. There's a girl lived up there next door to him that I was kind of trying to see how far I could get with. So I'm driving up the highway, and up here at Walport, I saw this light. It wasn't very high above the horizon at all, and this looked like my first thought was it was a landing light going into Newport, but it kept coming. And finally I realized this is down by Walport, and it's gotten bigger. So I'm probably 100 yards from going to the road that goes up to Camp One, and I stopped. Now, this is the middle of the night, and of course back then there wasn't much traffic ever on this coast highway. I stopped, shut the car off, turned out the lights, come around and stood in front of it and watched this thing come. Now it was below treetop level, okay? After it come down, dropped down. Well, between the highway and Camp One was a field. Went up like this where they were. This object came right down below the treetops, right past me. Now, I just got out of the Navy, and I know airplanes, how fast they travel and have to travel, everything. And I watched it go right by me, and it kept on going. And it went right down to Yachats and there's a place down there called Cape Perpetua. It raised up over the top of that saddle back up there about a mile or so and dropped down on the other side. It was a ball of fire. Now this ball looked to me like it was probably 100 feet or more in diameter, and the flame going out the back of it was probably 200 feet. And I could feel the heat. It went by me, halfway between me and Camp One, and went down and went up over there. Well, I went on up to my brother's place, and there's girls out there. I said, "Did you see that?" She said, "Yes." So I called the state police, and they came down 2 cars. And they took her in one and me in the other, and we spent till daylight back up in that country, back up in there trying to find fire or something. Never could find it. We went clear to Mapleton, never found it.
Wow. But you didn't see it land. You said it went over Cape Perpetua.
No, it went out of sight. Dropped down out of sight on the other side of Cape Perpetua. So dropping at the angle, I figured it'd crash down there. Well, we covered that all night long. 2 cars.
Yeah.
Never found it.
So you said there's 5 things. What's the next one?
Okay, another one. I was up. Do you know where Friend is? It's a ghost town.
No.
Okay, north of Madras.
Okay.
as you're going down towards Columbia River. It's on Highway 197. And all that's there anymore is just a little church. That's all. Everything else is the cemetery. That's all that's there. And that's where I went turkey hunting, was back up there toward Mount Hood. And I don't know, the second or third night I was there. I was outside at 11 o'clock. I'll never forget. I thought, I got to get in and get some sleep. So I went out and peed. And as I turned around, I looked up the Columbia River, and here's these lights up there, white ones and red ones. And they're just not connected. But all of a sudden, this one takes off down toward the Columbia River. It looks like it comes down within a mile or less than that of the river, half a mile maybe at the most, and zooms up over here and stops. Now, ordinarily, like around Mount Hood, you'd see guys skiing, go down, go up. Well, then he's standing here. This one's here, and all of a sudden, here comes another one. Goes up, parks at a different place. And they're doing this pretty quick. This one goes back. Now, I sat there for half an hour watching these lights go back and forth. There's no mountains up there. It was over the Columbia River. So I finally got tired and went to bed.
Showing off, and you just like, I don't need any more of this.
So the next morning, I got up there and looked up there, and surely there was no way, there was no land around there at all. That was two. Another time, I was down out of Long Beach. We was up playing golf.
That's in Washington?
No, Oregon, or California.
Oh, California, okay.
We were out there playing a nine-hole golf course, me and a couple of my buddies. And this ridge of mountains over there to the east of us, quite a ways, I happened to look up and I saw this little white light come zipping down there along that range. Went past us, went down their ways, and just went straight up. Didn't go like this. It went out of sight. That was another one.
Man, I haven't seen anything. I want to see.
Have you seen a Sasquatch?
You seen a Sasquatch?
I didn't see it, but all the symptoms I have seen.
What is that?
Well, like tracks, of course, structures, sounds.
What does he sound?
Knocking.
What does he sound like?
Growl.
Uh-huh.
It was deeper than any bear could get.
Uh-huh.
And I was less than probably 200 feet from it. That was up on a mining site up by Baker City.
Oh, Baker, Eastern Oregon.
The odor that I caught was down by Crater Lake.
Uh-huh.
Hunting season. And I and my brothers, what we were hunting, and we were all going to meet over at a certain point. So I'm coming along up there in the mountains. All of a sudden, I thought I smelled a skunk. One step. The second step about gagged me. What in the hell is that?
Yeah.
And I couldn't hardly take a second breath. It was so bad. Well, I thought possibly, maybe something's killed something and it's rotting. Okay. But I've smelled lots of rot. I've dead cows, dead elk, everything. And it didn't smell near that bad.
Yeah.
And so I'm standing there thinking about this. My God, I was going to look around. I knew it had to be close, whatever it was, because it smelled that strong. But I knew the rest of them were down there, and we were supposed to at a certain time to meet. So I thought, it's probably just some cow or elk or something, so I left. But I can still smell it. And so that was one. And then I was up the Sisters Mountains.
Oh.
And I'm going along up through there, and I come to these trees. They're bent over with a rock laying on the top of them.
What?
Keeping them bent over.
Yeah.
They were about 3 to 4 inches in diameter, or something like that. So then I went a little further, and here's these things like this. And some of these trees have been pulled out of the ground.
Yeah.
And they're up in the air.
Like floating?
No, they're on the stack.
Oh, they're stacked.
But they're turned upside down.
Yeah.
and they're bent in. So that from all the information that I hear and illustrations, that's what that was. That was it was someplace they slept at night or
like a Sasquatch bed.
yeah. So then I was up by Baker City. A friend of ours had a mining claim up there, had for years, and so I got permission to go up there on it. So I went into town and I met with the daughter, and she took me up and showed me where it was. It's about 9 miles out of town to the bottom of the road that went up. That had been 6 or 7 miles up there. So it's about 15 miles up from town. So she took me up and showed it to me. It had a cabin on it. I'd love to have owned that place. The cabin had been there for years and years, but it was still in good shape. And I slept in it at night.
Yeah.
So before I get to that one, just a week before, I'm at another mining claim over towards Sumter. And this little stream is only about that wide, okay, mostly that wide. And it was just a kind of a trickle. Well, there was a little barricade that had been built up there, a dam kind of, and this water was running over the top of it.
Yeah.
Well, I was running, they had knocked all the sand and everything out, and here was this gravel, pea gravel, okay?
Yeah.
Well, I come up and started to go across, and here in this gravel was a track that was at least this long, this wide, and that deep, barefooted.
Nice.
So I was going to follow it.
Yeah.
But it stepped there, and then it stepped up on the bank, and it went up into the brush, and I tried to follow it in the brush. I couldn't follow it.
Yeah.
So then I'm up at this other claim, up by Baker, and I'm standing down there. It's late evening, and the cabin, well, if this was the piece of property, the mining claim, the creek ran down here, and here was the cabin.
Yeah.
And then the road came over here. Well, I'm standing right here. And all of a sudden, up here, I had this, and it was real deep. I couldn't get my voice that deep.
Uh-huh.
Up on the, above the road.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a bear.
It was no bear. I know what a bear is. I know just about every sound a bear makes.
Yeah.
I know just about every sound a cougar makes. An elk, a deer, a raccoon, all of them. I've spent he can testify, millions of hours in the woods. And so I thought, it can't be. But I didn't have guts enough to walk around to see. Till I stood there for a while, and then I went over there, and I walked up to the road, because it sounded like it was right close to the road, but I never saw any sign of it, but I know what it had to be.
Dude. Sasquatch is so legendary.
Yeah.
But he just, he's so shy. I've never seen him or anything.
Most people haven't. And most people that go in the woods every day for years never see one.
Yeah. Well, I've been in the woods a lot, and I've never seen a cougar either. But I have seen bears.
Yeah. Well, here's a question that comes up lots of times on these programs. Well, we never found any bones from a Sasquatch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say, have you ever seen the bones of a bear or a cougar?
That's actually a good point. Like,
Or a cat in a tree.
Yeah.
or a cat in a tree. Yeah.
Never seen a skeleton
So-
of a cat in a tree.
Yeah.
As far as where he comes from, it goes back. There's history of them goes back hundreds of years that says they've been around here for a long, long time. Well, they try to say, well, because we got cameras and everybody carrying a cell phone.
Yeah.
You got. I don't think that's it.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it's. I think from what originally happened from California to Alaska along the coastal range, they started popping up, and now they're clear across the United States. Maine, all those countries, cities or states back there got them.
Yeah.
And I've seen a map of the United States
Yeah.
with pops wherever they are, and the majority of them, of course, are here on this west coast. But up around the New England states, there's quite a big package of them there too. But they're all the way across. So I try to figure out how this could have happened.
Yeah.
And when you look at the stories that go back in the 1800s and whatnot of miners being run out of their cabins and various things like that, shows that they've been around a long time, but they're not stupid. That's why you hardly ever see them.
Uh-huh.
They know. They know when a guy's got a gun. So they know this stuff. They see us. But the way they hide and the way they blend in, I don't know how many times I could have walked right past one, or Russ could have, or you could have.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because of their wariness.
Well, you think they're pretty intelligent, like
Well, I think they've got a lot of intelligence.
Yeah.
This one lady had heard these two in a conversation. She called it gibberish. And so that's kind of stuck with him now. Somebody, a gibberish talking now. But it can't understand. But they seem to know. Ever since I smelled that one, way back several years ago, actually we were hunting in the Fort Rock area and up on the side of the mountain. And it was shortly after that I heard about the Gilbert film. And I saw that, and it didn't mean a whole lot until I started talking about the odors of these things. Not all of them, but a good majority of them have a terrible odor about them. Well, if they're the kind of hobo that I think they are, they don't bother with much about taking a bath.
Yeah, totally.
So I just kind of, I have to say that those things that I saw, that I'd seen enough on film and heard enough about it, that there's no doubt in my mind that's what's there. I could take you up to Sisters right now and show you some of them.
Uh-huh.
So I know that they exist.
Yeah.
And that track blew my mind. It was sunk in that far. He must have weighed 600-700 pounds or more.
Yeah.
To just into that gravel, this pea gravel.
Uh-huh.
The pressure down on him. And so I just, no question in my mind, that's for real. And that odor, obviously that adds to it.
Yeah.
And then that growl, I knew instantly it wasn't a bear.
Yeah.
So now I'm never going in the woods again, okay? I was already afraid of the bear and the cougar. Now I gotta worry about Sasquatch too.
No.
I'm gonna have some traumatic stress.
Yeah. I don't think you'll ever.
This thing sounds like it could just break you in half and eat and drink your blood. Like
We could. I just read a deal the other day, or I heard a deal on cell phone where this guy was out climbing this hill, and he had already smelled this thing, didn't know what it was, and then it jumped on him and bit his arm off to below the elbow, and jumped over there on the rock and sat there eating it while he's laying there bleeding to death. And he was smart enough, he got a tourniquet on it, and he wasn't very far from his vehicle. But it happened another vehicle came along, and he saw him bleeding, stopped and said, "Can I help him?" And that guy took him to the hospital.
So we're not leaving the road this weekend, okay? We're staying on the paved roads this weekend. He was
I don't think that makes any difference. Most of the sightings are where they're crossing the damn road.
Now I'm going to my safe space.
yeah, safe space.
I don't need this on anymore, do I?
Can you hear it? Yeah.
We're
still alive.
Yeah, we're still alive.
We're still alive.
But actually, I think we're probably about done here. Actually, Wayne went a little bit longer than I even. I was gonna check at an hour, but like we're at an hour and a half now. I think we're really rocking here. As soon as we got into UFOs, it just took off.
We're going on an adventure this weekend.
Oh, where are you guys going?
Yeah, we're gonna go south. We're gonna go up over the Coquille, South Coquille, and end up Gold Beach, Rogue River.
Oh, I love that whole area.
Well,
Yeah, that's right.
I
You
just
mentioned that's gonna
heard
be
of
awesome.
3 incidences where they've been seen down there.
Yeah. Mine is the back of my
Yeah, well, Russ, bring your camera. It's gonna be good.
camera.
Well, that's one of these things that most of these guys talk about is that they're so amazed and startled and scared they forget to take pictures.
Yeah.
They,
Oh, I probably heard stuff. But
and I know this guy was supposed to have been down in Kentucky or someplace, had his shotgun. He was out and he had double-aught buckshot in him, going deer hunting, and this thing shows up, and he turned around and ran and forgot he had the shotgun.
Jeez.
Well, when you look at if the size of what they're talking about, they run anywhere from 5 foot that they call juveniles
Yeah.
up to 7 feet, and then from then on they're adults. And when they're talking up to as high as 15 feet tall, look at your ceiling. How high is it?
That's it's like mid ceiling maybe.
Yeah, it's just
It's a tall ceiling. It's a good.
But I would say the average is 10 feet
Okay.
overall.
That seems pretty.
That's still.
Because
they
some
stand
people
and
get
look
up to
in
like
your,
8.
Your front bedroom window.
Yeah.
They can look in.
Yeah.
So
Well-
there's something else, and the scientists, of course, with their narrow-mindedness, they'll never admit that there's anything until they get evidence.
Wow. I mean,
you know.
you get me started about the whole pyramids and
yeah.
Egypt and all that.
Yeah.
But we got to wrap this up. So Richard,
Okay.
thanks so much for coming on.
My
thanks
pleasure.
Russ for running the show and keeping us.
I got off my atom bomb and hydrogen bomb, but I'll get back. Say one more thing about it.
Yeah. Okay.
That until they can make that so that it's less radioactive, they'll never be able to use it unless it's some crackpot like maybe the North Korean. He might be wild enough he could do something like that.
we got an iron dome protecting us. We're safe.
Yeah.
I sure hope so.
So anyway, I do have great sympathy for the Marshallese
Yes.
because they were treated very badly and still. And I think about the veterans that were there, that their families, the suffering that they've had gone through from it. And there's no recourse to it. I mean, sure, you're 100% disabled, which everybody over there was. Right after that, we were all disabled within 5 years. That isn't going to do any good. How do you replace a loved one?
There's no replacing a loved one for sure.
You never do.
Yeah.
So I have great sympathy for those people. I wish there was something more I could do for them. And I pray. I'm a Christian. I believe in Christ. I believe in God. And that's another thing. People say he or her, with the fighting over it's male or female. Neither one. In the Bible, it simply says, God says, I am. It doesn't say, I am a boy, I am a girl. I am.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe that that's very possible, because I believe if God is in everything, how minute he must be in each particle. We've gone down as far as we think that we can go in an atom structure. I think there's another one down there that we haven't found yet.
Yeah. Well, we think we know a lot. But
Yeah, we don't. We
we
don't
don't
know
know,
anything.
yeah.
We just think we do.
I like that. I like that about you. Very humble. All right. Well, that'll be it for the
All
night.
right.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Russ, and thanks for listening, everybody. We had a bunch of people listening tonight. I think that OG
Wow.
Skywatch was our biggest fan, and we'll have to. Well, maybe sometime we'll have it back on.
Well,
because I got more I want to talk about.
I have other stories.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.